doll makers, I know that you've already seen the finished product, and I hope that it turned out as cute as I have imagined in my mind. And I kind of think, you know, how can it not be cute? Because these are just such cute stamps, aren't they? The Cutie Patootie stamp set designed by Deb Davis for Whimsy Stamps is just adorable. And it was released in September of 2020. And so this is a new stamp set, and it is being featured in the Whimsy Stamps video blog hop that you're a part of probably right now. That's why you're here. And so I'm sure that you have seen some amazing makes already with this, and that you will see many more. So let's get started talking about how I have decided that I think I want to proceed with using and showcasing these adorable little bats. So I'm very grateful that there is a matching die set that goes along with the Cutie Patootie Bat stamps. And so that's going to be helpful, because I think that I want to use not only all 3 bats, but I want to cut out a bunch of these pumpkins and make a pumpkin patch that they are hanging out in. See what I did there? Since I want to use all 3 of the bats, I need a larger surface than just a card. And so I am going to cover the inside of a vignette tray. And this is a small vignette tray. The vignette trays are by Tim Holtz Ideology, and they come in 2 sizes. This is the smaller one, and there's one that's longer and taller. So the smaller one will be enough for all 3 of our little bats, because if I have one kind of hanging right here, then I have this one here in the center, and then I can have the little one that's flying over here. And you can see that I have all 3, and they'll fit just fine in here. But I want it to look like a night sky in the background, so I pulled 2 pieces of paper that are matching pieces of paper. So if you look this way, see how they're exactly the same, but I just kind of flipped them a little bit. Those are from the Nevermore paper pack by Whimsy Stamps, and you get 2 of each style in each paper pack. Since I want to cut quite a few of the pumpkins and have pumpkins all around here, and then this one in the center to make it look like a pumpkin patch. Pumpkins grow on vines, and so I'm going to use a die that was also designed by Deb Davis, and that is the Wild Weeds die set that was also released in September. I think I'm going to use this one from the Wild Weeds. It looks like a pumpkin patch vine to me, so I'm going to go ahead and cut several of those and kind of intertwine them between the pumpkins. About that. One thing I did want to use, and I haven't used this yet, and so I thought this might be the project to use it on. This is the No See All Seasons Tree die set. And I just want to use the tree today, and I cut it in half because I think it will make a kind of a shadow box without it being an actual shadow box, if that makes any sense. And I thought if I just put it on here and then cut off the top and the bottom part, that I could have this little bat hanging from the little branch right there, and then this one would fit in the center, and then this one could be just over here on the inside, and it would kind of cover up the edges and kind of give it a little bit of dimension. But as always, and this is the way that I do my videos, I like to give you an idea of where I'm going before I get started, and then, you know, it's always a surprise wherever we end up. So I hope you'll join me as I make this Cutie Patootie project. All right, so here's a little update. I have covered the outside of the vignette, and I didn't discuss this because I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I covered the outside of the vignette with some bat paper, and the green bat paper and the green striped paper from the Vintage Halloween paper pack by Whimsy Stamps. So I just pulled these 2 out. It took 2 of the striped and 1 of the bat because I only went around the outside with the striped paper, and then because they are 6x6 papers, I could have tried to kind of match them up or whatever, but I decided it would be fun just to do kind of a little patchworky background and use the stripes and the back. All right, I realized one thing I didn't talk about was how I adhered this. And so if you haven't used a vignette box before and you haven't adhered anything to it, I used Distress Collage Medium always to cover my boxes, and I have Distress Collage Medium brushes, and I have them in lots of different sizes, but they are all drying right now. So this is the largest one, and then there's one that's about an inch and a half wide, and then one that's about an inch wide. And so I usually use the two smaller sizes, but every once in a while I need this size as well. So what you do is you would just dip into the Distress Collage Medium, and you're going to brush on just a good amount. So you don't want to be stingy with it. You want a good amount on there, and then you will take whatever it is that you're attaching, you're going to press it down. You want to press it into the collage medium and then move along. Now I'm going to distress this even more. So I'm going to be adding some Distress Crayon in Black Soot to the edges. And in order to do that and have it not make a total mess, or to be able to move it around on the project, it needs to be sealed. So once I have had all the paper on, I sanded the edges. I went over the edges with my sanding block, and then wiped it all down. And then I took my brush again and I just went over it again. And at first I went over the sides, and I always take my fingers and I kind of rub it like this so that it's nice and smooth, or as smooth as you can get. It's not going to be completely smooth, but I do like it to be a little bit smooth, as you know, so it doesn't have the brush strokes. Sometimes the brush strokes are cool though, if I'm doing something really, really distressed, and this isn't that project. But if it's really, really distressed, a lot of times I will go ahead and leave the brush strokes, or if I want it to look kind of wood grain, I will go in, you know, a certain direction, and then I'll leave all of the brush strokes. But with this one, that wasn't the case. So once I got all the sides done, I went ahead, went over the entire back, and then went ahead and just kind of rubbed it, and it will start to dry very quickly as you do that, and you'll see it smoothing out. And then you just let it dry completely on its own. Once it's dry completely, you can take your Distress Crayon, and usually I do brown, but this one doesn't call for brown for me. I felt like I wanted to go with the Black Soot since it is a Halloween project. And so you just rub it in with your fingers, and as you can see, that really kind of took that corner and colored where it was all white, and it just kind of made it kind of give a little bit of a spooky air to it, I feel like. And so I would do that all the way around. So rub it on there. And then if you feel like, you know, as you're doing this and you feel like, oh, I think I just went way overboard on that and it's a little too dark. And normally I would wait until I have the front pieces on for this part. But because I'm showing you, I'm just going to go with it. All right. So you may do this and then you may feel like, you know, I just got way too much Black Soot on there, and it's covering up what I want to see. That's not a problem. And because you've sealed it with the collage medium, you can actually take some of it off. So I just go in with a dry towel and just wipe some of that off. You could go in with kind of a damp towel, but really it doesn't call for that right now because it's still kind of fresh. Once it completely dries, you might have to go with a bit of a damp towel. So, all right. And so there you can see now I wiped off some of it, but I left it around the edges, wiped it off in the center there. And so then that gave me a nice kind of distressed edge look, but I can still see the center. And so I would do that around all the sides and completely around the back, so that it just kind of has kind of an eerie Halloween feel to it. So that's how that turned out. And then on the inside, I used that greenish paper, and you can totally see the seam. So then I tried to cover it up, and I don't think I was very successful, but I added some, you can see I added some clouds in the back there. And I did that with the Tim Holtz Distress Watercolor pencils. So I used the white one and also the hickory smoke. And I just scribbled it on there, and then I went over it with a water brush, and it just kind of left behind some kind of wispy clouds. All of these were colored with the Distress crayons, or I always call them that, the Distress watercolor pencils. And so all the pumpkins were a variation of Wild Honey and Rusty Hinge, and this one is Spice Marmalade and Crackling Campfire. So I used all four of those oranges. The bat ears are mostly Tattered Rose with a little bit of Kitsch Flamingo thrown in, as well as their little cheeks and noses. And then the bats themselves are, well, the stems and the curlicue vine things are Peeled Paint and Rustic Wilderness, with a little bit of Vintage Photo thrown in, the little bit of brown. And then I went over the pumpkins with a little bit of Vintage Photo, a little bit of walnut stain on the creases to add a little bit more distressing. I like things to be a little bit distressed and, you know, kind of vintagey looking. And then my bats were colored with iced spruce, hickory smoke, and a little bit of black soot that I went over, so that kind of some of the darker areas are the black soot. For this update, I thought I would show you that I got the wood grain around the edges here, so I cut it at 1/4 inch and adhered it, and then I cut the tree in half from the same wood grain. And what it comes in 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 packet, or you can get it an 8 1/2 by 11, and it's white, and then you just stain it. And so I stained it with some distress stains, and then I went over it with walnut stain and pumice stone distressing. I just went pad to paper for the raised bits to kind of make it look darker and a little bit aged. And so that's what we have here with these two, well, the two halves of one tree that I cut from the No See All Seasons tree. And then I got the lights that I was talking about. So these are the Tim Holtz Ideology Tiny Lights for Halloween. They come in green and purple. And so I use my Dremel, and this is the biggest little drill bit that I have in the set. And so I usually put it in, then I kind of just go around in a circle a little bit to make sure it's wide enough to get the lights through, because there's kind of a thick part to these lights. So I usually leave the battery pack out, and I will make a little holder to put it in back here, and that, so that you can pull it out and you can change the batteries if you want. And then I stuck it down with some foam squares. Originally, I just kind of wrapped it around itself back and forth, so it went all the way across the back, and kind of twisted it together, stuck it into the foam squares in the very bottom edge corner of the tray. And then once it was stuck down, I just took an extra bit of this that I had cut, and I stuck it down with Distress Collage Medium, and that will keep it held down so it doesn't pop up. So you can see that it is green when I turn it on. So start kind of arranging things now, but I just wanted you to see how that worked. And you can see the hole on this side where it came through, and then I went ahead and twisted it back and forth until it ran out, and then stuck it down permanently. So, all right, so that's how you light up a vignette. Since the last time I checked in, I have completed the project, and I left off with putting in the pumpkins and the little bats, and so I finished that off. You can see there is some dimension. Some of them are closer to the front, some of them are right on the front, some of them are back just off the wall a little bit. And then I have some more of that moss in the front here. And I added those wild weeds leaves to look kind of like a pumpkin vine, so that this would look a lot like a pumpkin patch. And I finished, I did not make a cover for my lights, but I did finish with all of the crayons on the back. And I really am pleased with how this turned out. I have so many lights on right now that I don't think that you're going to be able to see the lights. So I will have to put a picture with the lights all off when I turn it on. So it's just a little green glow from the back. It's not in your face lighting. But I'm so happy with how this turned out. The other thing that I added was I just made a little sign out of some of that wood grain that I had before. I just cut a little sign out of it. I stamped the Cutie Patootie from the stamp set wording, put that on there, and then I used the Happy Halloween word die set from Whimsy Stamps as well in the back. And I just colored watercolor, distress watercolor paper with the distress watercolor pens so that the colors would match on the words and on the pumpkins. And so that's how our little Halloween Cutie Patootie vignette turned out. And I hope that I answered any of the questions that you might have had as to how to make this. If not, you are welcome to contact me through my blog at playswellwithpaper.blogspot.com. And I want to thank you so much for following along with this tutorial. Just a reminder that all of the instructions for the Whimsy Stamps Tricks and Treats Hop and Giveaway are in the description of this video. And so you will need to subscribe to this channel and comment on the video before you go on to the next stop on the hop. You have until October 31st to get all of the hop stops made, and I wish you good luck and happy Halloween.